you're not here for the session.
Oh,
we're
live.
tell you that later.
On YouTube. Okay, we're live on YouTube. Good evening.
Actually, hold on a second.
Okay, we're not live. Give us a moment.
Okay, now.
All right, now we're live. It is Monday, October 13th, 6:36, the Old Farm District monthly board meeting here at Classroom A in the Lawrenceburg Community Center. We have our board, and we also have City Councilor Mike Riley with us today. Thank you, Mike, for attending.
Yep.
Briefly, everybody introduce yourself. I'm James DeRofi. I'm the board chair.
Brian Kennedy.
Jen Sawyer, social media.
Ross Tinty.
Karen Johnson.
Mike Riley, City Councilor.
And then rules for the hybrid meeting are very simple. If you have any questions, just raise your hand. Please unmute yourself, and if possible, turn your camera off or on, I should say, so that we can see you, so that we can address whatever question you have. We are going to hit a few different topics today. It's going to be a large land use conversation. But if either James or Sherry have anything, we have some public comment time in the very beginning. If they have anything you want us to address, now is the time to ask, or just stop us further on. So, questions, comments? That would be no. All right, we're gonna go to the meeting. We've been extremely busy. So rather than do old business, we're gonna go straight into the land use discussion, because it's so much, and it definitely has a lot to do with our old business. Just so you know, we have been in active conversations with Senator Anthony Broadman at the state legislature, as well as Councilor Riley and the mayor, regarding the concept of complete communities in the southeast of Bend. But for this, we'd like to go through and summarize a couple of the things that are actively going on. Ross, I'm going to need you, if you can, bring up our website, and then Karen, I'm going to pass it to you to go project by projects over the 3 or 4. Give it a second, and Ross will have it all in front of us. You want to scroll down, Ross? This is our website for people that don't go there. We update this whenever we get relevant information. Karen, if you can't see that, so we've got the Southeast Development Plan update, as well as the Stevens Road Tract.
Yeah, you want me to start with the update?
Yes.
Okay, can you open that, or like look at the map? I don't see.
You looking for which map?
Yeah, okay, good. Yeah, if you go on our website, you will see what's happening to the development of what they call the elbow. That it is sometimes hard to keep up with what's happening, because various developers submit various projects, and no one in the city actually summarizes them generally. But if you look at the map, you'll see that there are some developments going in that are going to be causing a lot more traffic, 2,000 road trips a day, for example, on Ferguson. It's the North Peak Property Management. They're going to be putting in 9 buildings with, I think, a total of 307 units. And next to it are going to be townhomes. The Magnolia Meadows subdivision is going to be putting in about 154 units. There is a large master plan being proposed, but it has not been submitted to the city yet. They've been talking to the city at what they call a pre-application phase to get an idea as to what the city will accept. To the west of that, you have the eastern master plan. Houses continue to be built. And then across from the high school, you have again part of the eastern master plan, which is going to be a lot of apartments and what was supposed to be commercial area on the corners of 15th and Knott Road. We'll be talking about that. what is of interest, if you go back to what's labeled the North Peak Management, multifamily, is that the project is gonna be developed by a company that has a, what are called 501c3 division, a charitable division. And of these apartments, about 53 of them are going to be for affordable homes, low-income people, using what they call a tax increment financing scheme. And it's pretty impressive that about 13 are going to be between the division. Some will be for people making 80% or less of the area media income. A certain number for people making 70% or less, and the net rest for people making 60% or yes or less. So the city is really pushing and trying to get more affordable housing for people, and this is a good thing that this is happening. So that gives you an idea of what's coming and what the plans are as far as you know for future development in this area.
Another one?
So that's it.
That was the one.
Okay, Stevens Road, okay. The Stevens Road project continues to be built. For those of you who are not sure, it's where the big library is and the house is going in across from that. The original plan, the master plan, had a large, as you call it, an industrial section at the intersection of 27 and what would be an extension of Ferguson. Last week, they moved to change that and move that large industrial section, light industrial, to the back of the property and move another section to that corner. The large section that they preserved, apparently they were hoping that some company would come in essence, like Microsoft, set up a campus where you have one company putting up a very large facility. They have had no interest in that happening. And so they're moving the development so that they can have like 1, 2, 3 acre parcels of light industrial that'll be on the corner of 27 and Ferguson. In other words, they're not changing the amount of acreage for light industrial. They're simply making it more likely that it may occur as they hope and are planning at this point. Let's see.
So Karen, I'm confused on that. They're moving stuff from the back to the front, that square there in the bottom
Yeah,
left of that,
there
the
we go.
purple one? Yeah, that is switching, click, now go left. To the. Which are you?
So we're talking Stevens Ranch, which is
It's
not right there.
Stevens
To the
Ranch.
left area.
Yeah.
Far left. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Yeah, that big piece there switches places with the one to its immediate right. It looks a funny shape. Okay.
Yeah, so where your arrow is, that's going to be smaller light industrial parcels. And the area that's running along the, in essence, the gas line with Stevens track, that is going to be for what they hope will be one large light industrial complex
Okay.
with one large developer. Like if Microsoft moved in, they would be very happy with that. I don't know if that's going to happen. But in essence, they're not changing the total acreage, but they're trying to make it more feasible for people to want to come in and put in some light industrial there. So I think it's a good thing that's what they're doing.
Mike, I'd like to ask, you may be able to help describe this better. I believe in the last city council meeting, there was in the Juniper Ridge area, there was a new commercial overlay concept of pharmaceutical. Brooks Resources is building something for an undisclosed pharmaceutical. Do you remember what I'm talking about?
I don't remember that.
Okay. Just for the people, could you paint that picture of what that was discussed 2 weeks ago? And that would possibly, I'm assuming, be something we're talking about in an industrial light area, or is that a different concept in the Juniper Ridge concept?
I think it's a different concept. I mean, I don't remember the exact zoning up there, but Brooks, it's Taylor Brooks. It's a partnership between Taylor Development and Brooks Resources. They purchased land from the city. It is being developed now, and they're building 3 kind of ready to go for tenant buildings there. But, you know, most of that land is already, it's zoned industrial, light industrial, or commercial.
I have a question, you may be able
I
to,
think it's a big part of it, you know, the last time we did urban growth boundary expansion. You're required to have a certain amount of, you know, you have to be residential and you have to have a certain amount of land for jobs, right, from employment. And that was a big way that we were getting that, was this land down here that Karen was just talking about, but also up there in Bridge.
there was an interesting conversation during that city council meeting where the primary tenant of, or I shouldn't say tenant, I should say landowner, which was Les Schwab, put in some sort of CCNR, I don't even know if that's the right term, regarding a height restriction in that IL. Is that something that can be reproduced, and how did they do that? And does that mean that somebody on this area near us could do the same thing if it's the first person who buys the property can then make the rules for the rest of the industrial light?
Well, that agreement was made a long time ago by previous councils, like a decade, more than a decade ago. So nobody who's on the city council today was involved in it anyway. Basically what they did is they somehow got, I guess it's a CCNR, it's essentially a contractual agreement that if they went in and developed there, they would be able to restrict the heights of buildings to their west. It seems to protect their view shed. I can't really speak to what they publicly said was the reason for it back then, but that's what it appears to be. So it restricts the ability for homes to be, or, you know, any building to be larger to the west. And I believe that property, I mean, I have to refresh my memory on this one.
I'm just, it just popped into my head.
I mean, again, you know, not having, there's no application in front of us right now that would ask for a similar agreement. I don't believe the current council would be willing to give that kind of agreement to somebody.
So it is something that the council could do if it was.
And I don't even know under current law. I don't know.
Okay,
We haven't wrestled with that question and nobody's coming to us and asked it.
okay.
So, yeah, I don't think anybody at the council was very happy about the fact that it exists. You know, because it's a contractual thing, it's pretty hard to break.
I only ask you that is because some of the development that we've been dealing with, the entire southeast area seems to be a lot of development by exception. And I refer to Stevens Ranch, Stevens Tract, and Caldera Ranch.
Yeah, I mean, the legislature, in its wisdom, with support from the city of Bend at the time, passed 2 different bills at 2 different times to allow these exceptions, right? So the first one was the Stevens Road, Stevens Ranch tract, allow those lands to be brought in outside of the standard UG expansion process, but the bill included a lot of elements that kind of mirrored or echoed the land use process, but it sped it up. And then, and I never remember all the bill numbers correct, but the bill that created the opportunity most recently for up to 100-acre expansions was kind of modeled after that bill that it had, I believe, a higher affordability.
And that.
So that's not exceptions in terms of, it's not exceptions to city, that the city did, it's the state gave local jurisdictions the opportunity to do these smaller expansions. And that one has to be, the most recent one, Caldera Ranch, has to be a quote down payment on future expansions. So let's say in 5, you know, maybe it's not 5 years, 3 years from now, we know we need an expansion for the next 20 years of 450 acres. I'm just making that up. The acreage that was approved for Caldera Ranch would be deducted from that. And the net difference would be the number you're allowed to expand, unless the law changes for some.
So Mike, on that note, I just want to ask you a hypothetical, but a non-hypothetical. For what it sounded like the city council was saying, and I believe Councilor Mendez went into some more details. He was asking specific questions regarding the tax credits, everything for when an affordable housing projects goes in. It sounds to me like they all get instituted at the end before the occupancy of a permit is issued.
I'd have to double check and see. I don't know that.
Okay,
It's probably around that time.
Yeah. So
Executed all
one of
the.
the things that we've come up with as we've been looking at all of these various developments and land use laws is there doesn't seem to be any sort of enforcement mechanism. So if the developer of, say, Caldera Ranch, which was required to do a 30% affordable housing mechanism, and then if they did all that, they get tax credits. What happens if at the end, right before they decide to have anybody move in, they say, you know what, we've decided to go market rate housing. We're gonna pay full SDCs, we don't want any tax credits, but they've already built their projects, now they're waiting for does the city have any sort of mechanism to say, well, gee, wait a minute, you promised us this, but now you're backing down? And you can get back to us on this.
Yeah, I think, I mean, in my brain, I'm not entirely Caldera Ranch versus say the Emblem. Tax increment finance district that was approved, that is the one on Ferguson, just.
No, Northridge or.
To the west.
That might even be a better.
I mean, that's one.
Okay.
My point is, one is a tax increment finance tool. Another that we're talking, that I know you want to talk about tonight is at the corner of Nodden and 15th. That's a tax exemption, which is a whole different mechanism. And then Caldera Ranch, I mean, unless I'm really misremembering, we have not approved any kind of incentive for them at this point. In order to be approved for the one-time expansion of the UGB, they had to commit to 30% unit.
Sounds like more.
Right, but that's not an incentive at this point. Now, it's not to say they're not gonna come back to us for something, but that'll be a whole separate process.
Okay.
So, I mean, I just want to be careful with the mixed.
Yeah, if you use the emblem.
So on Emblem as an example, for the tax increment financing tool, the development agreements do include a clawback mechanism. The first development agreement that we've approved under that tool, is what we call the site-specific tip, or you'll hear some people call it Tiaha. It sounds like a Russian crown or something. That development agreement is what actually executes it, is really the contractual agreement, and it does have clawback language in there. Like if they're not following through, and that one is assessed annually, so they have to prove every single year. What they do is they pay their taxes. And then their taxes are refunded to them. I think it's 97% of them. We keep 3% or 6% for administration of the program. But they have to prove first that they met all the criteria. They're still renting and meeting the AMI requirements for the 15% of the units or whatever percentage they did. And they have to show that they haven't increased the rents. The increase in rents have been below the state maximum threshold. And any other stuff, like if they did clean energy or what they whatever.
And that's the development on Ferguson.
Well, there's multiple
That's an
ones.
example.
Ferguson,
One of the examples.
yes, Ferguson is called Emblem.
Okay.
We approved that recently, but that was just a plan. We have not approved the development agreement yet. That'll be the next step in a few months. The only one we got all the way through the process was in the central district, just to the west of the Parkway. It's called Parkway Studios.
So just for the record, one of our concerns is we are worried about possible future enforcement. Since we know that our city council in the state of Oregon is very concerned about providing affordable housing in the future. We are just wondering, what happens if, because when Councilor has run through some of the numbers, he was debating with the developer a $4 million versus a $13 million difference. And when I ran the numbers, because I think they said an $80 million project, if the interest rates go down 1% the next 2 years before they even build, they essentially save almost $18 to $20 million. So any incentives that they had would be much better off if they just went full market value. So
they have not, they don't actually, they won't get the abatement until for the Emblem project, for the tax increment financing tool, so we're being really specific. They wouldn't get any abatement, as I understand it, until after the certificate of occupancy.
Correct.
People that have actually moved in, right, in the first year that they're assessed, the new value. At that point, if they decide to do something, then, the other thing that you can do is, instead of just giving them 100% of abatement, and this is what we did, or refund, if you will, reimbursement of their taxes. with the Parkway Studios is we also are paying part of it as SDCs up front. So essentially, if their total value of incentive was like 1.4 million, that's a very small project, relatively speaking. It's 24 studios, and half of them are at reduced rents. Some of that is upfront as SDC. So essentially, the borough, the vendor of the renewal agency, is going to pay the SDCs to the city.
Would you mind?
And now that one, if they didn't follow through, I would hope, since I'm still on council, that we would claw that back if they didn't follow through.
That's good to hear.
But it probably would take action and council would have to vote to do it.
Would you mind, because BRRRR is an acronym that we haven't really heard much about. I'd really appreciate it if you could tell us a little bit about it.
The Bend Urban Renewal Agency. And so when these, we have urban renewal districts, one is in the central area, the core, one is in Juniper Ridge, one is at Murphy Road, and there used to be one in the downtown area, but that one is its plan is over. You create an urban renewal area, and then you use the tax increment financing tool. When we do what we call the TIAHA site-specific TIF, the tiny TIF, you're actually, for Emblem, you create a tax increment finance area that's just the boundary of the project itself, rather than a whole region. It's allowed under state law. It's a new way to use that tool.
So BRRRR isn't a city.
No, it's a separate entity. In our city, it is made up of the city council. I'm actually the chair, for what that's worth. And yeah, well, but it is city councilors. There's some discussion in the, 2 to 4 years from now that BRRRR might expand and have people from not just the council on it, but that's probably different.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. It was one of those new terms that popped up.
Yeah, and so BRRRR is the one that approves that Emblem tax increment.
Okay.
Excuse me.
Sam, you have a question? Or James?
Yeah, I'm having trouble with the volume. Do you have any control over your the volume on the microphone? I have mine up max and I have my ear to the computer, so maybe it's just my computer speaker. I don't know, but I've got a volume up on max.
Give us a moment. We'll try to hit up arrow on everything.
Yeah, I'll see what I can do.
So when your voices trail off, I can hardly hear you. When you're speaking up loud, I can fairly well make it out, but when your voices trail off, then I can't hear.
Challenge for us to hold these hybrid meetings.
So is that any better?
Yes, that's better.
All right. It sounds like one of our
Way to go, Rob.
microphones wasn't on, so.
Thank you.
Just, yeah, go for it.
So next item.
Yes.
The overpass, there's something I think a lot of people will be interested in. November 3rd at Larkspur, 5:30 to 7:30. There's going to be an open meeting about the overpass with the railroad on Reed Market. And I'm sure many people will want to see what exactly they're proposing. But if you do come on November 3rd. And the last issue is what's taken a lot of our time for the last 2 weeks. I know many people have told me that they've been looking forward to a grocery store on the commercial land that's across from Caldera on 15th and Knott Road. 2 weeks ago, we got a surprise that someone had applied to take 3.8 acres of that property, that commercially zoned property, and put in affordable housing. And our reaction was, this is part of the Easton Master Plan. The point of that commercial property was to aid in walkable neighborhoods, so people wouldn't have to drive someplace for a restaurant or to get a beer or to buy groceries. They'd be able to walk or bike to that corner. It turns out, upon research, that the Oregon legislature did something that virtually no one seems to have been aware of. certainly not our current elected representatives. In 2021, they passed what's called Senate Bill 8. For those of you who like to read statutes, it's been codified at Oregon Revised Statutes 197A.445. And the section that allows affordable housing on commercially zoned land provides, quote, a local government shall allow affordable housing and may not require a zone change or conditional use permit for affordable housing on property if, and this is section B, the property is zoned for commercial use. We met with our state representative, Senator Broadman. He was not aware of this. His initial reaction was, well, perhaps the city can get around that. And the answer is no, the city cannot. This is mandatory. Coming from the state, the statute goes on to list 4 exemptions. For example, whether the property is not served by adequate infrastructure, if the property has a slope of 25 degrees or more, if the property is within a 100-year floodplain, or is constrained by state land use goals related to natural disasters or resources. None of those exceptions apply to the property on the corner of Knott and 15th. This is a big deal for people who were looking forward to having some convenient commercial development there. We're hoping that the Senator Broadman can ultimately get a legislative change to this. That's the only way we can see this is going to be remedied. In the meantime, 3.8 acres of that property are now going to be affordable housing. This is contrary to the careful master plan that it took years to develop. It would apply to every master plan in the Bend. It could be overturned by putting affordable housing on commercial property. And we think it's a huge problem because it interrupts what we wanted to have as walkable neighborhoods. And this particular plan is we think, unnecessary because 17.5 acres around that corner commercial lot are already zoned for high-density residential.
Immediately adjacent.
And you,
Yeah, immediately adjacent. I mean, literally, immediately adjacent to the north and to the, yeah, exactly.
Yellow and green.
And so
The yellow.
this has huge implications. You think, for example, what if at the same time the city received 2 applications? One is to put a grocery store in that corner, and the other is to put affordable housing. The statute's mandatory. Anytime you have language that says shall allow, it's mandatory. You can't get around it. We're not sure what can be done about this. We're trying to bring it to the attention of the city council and the state legislature, but it royally screws up the master plans because all of our commercial, carefully planned land could disappear into affordable housing. And we think that's a big concern for walkable neighborhoods.
That map up there also doesn't show the proposed Caldera Ridge.
No, it does not.
So
That's the initial master plan zone.
Caldera Ranch.
Oh, no, it doesn't show Caldera.
Right.
right about here.
Yeah, so that also was to be served by the commercial, which was.
Yeah, the Caldera Ranch has a small commercial area. They could put affordable housing there. My reading of the statute, and I don't think I'm wrong, is that the city shall allow an application if it otherwise meets the other applicable regulations in the city. And the irony when you talk about Caldera Ranch is one of the reasons the city cited it there was because you were going to have such convenient commercial only, about a quarter of a mile away on the corners of Knott and 15th. So there's so much planning went into this, and the city has relied on this, and appears the state legislature has taken that discretion away from the city. We think that's a huge problem.
More to come.
I was going to say, Councilor Riley did not vote on that specific site for Caldera Ranch. She was one of the.
No, I mean, I didn't the first time around. I voted for the other one.
So just to fill you in, Mike, we have met with Senator Broadman. We have another meeting that we're going to be having with him. Interestingly enough, and we don't know, apparently he's talked with the mayor. I haven't chatted with her since that conversation, but he told us that the city council of Bend can absolutely stop this. And this is him saying this as a former city councilor. When we specifically asked him, we thought you wanted complete communities. We thought the climate friendly, equitable thing was all about having people not get in their car and drive to commercial. So I'm telling you this, there's 4 of us on that meeting. I'm not making this up. He said this is a city.
His position was that the city of Bend had the tools at their disposal
Tools. That was a-
to prevent that from happening.
And we asked him.
That, and
Prevent
the shall can be overcome by some mysterious tools in the city's toolkit. We could not get elaboration. We asked for specifics. They weren't at hand. And we left it with an ask that he provide resources or his staff provide resources to back up that. And potentially, if those tools existed in another municipality, that they could share those with us so that we might bring those to light for our city. And we, as of now, we have no further information on it.
We did submit a letter to the city's attorney. It would be great if they responded to us. We don't necessarily expect it.
When did you submit it?
Pardon me? A week ago.
Ian was on vacation.
Okay.
And other staff were working really hard on other issues that you're right.
And Mike, we're being patient on this. So if Ian does get back to us, great, because what we're wanting to know is basically citizens. Is this a state level issue or is this
You, Karen?
Yes.
quite legal? It was a very legal document.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not aware, and I believe our city staff has interpreted it differently than Senator Broadman has. I mean, I guess I'm happy to call him and say, what tools are you talking about, Senator? But so I mean, I will do that.
So he was charged with felony, or the mayor, excuse me. And at some point, we are just asking for clarification because if it's a city council thing, that's fine. We just need to make sure that the residents that have bought into not just the Easton area, but also Petrosa are aware of, what the reality is. Because as the press has gotten involved and people are starting to talk about this in other organizations, as well as some other agencies that I work with, we really want to know, is this something that the city council can address? And if it is only something that the state legislature can address, we really like an official statement from the city council or city manager saying, hey, no, this is state law. If you want a complete community, then you must change state law.
And I think it's worth noting that we're not talking about one development here. And we have the map on the screen now, and you can see, the undeveloped areas that might be in play. And across, you can scroll down a little bit.
Particularly.
You see that there.
Ferguson and 27.
Ferguson and 27th is basically the last remaining undeveloped commercial area available to this area. And so whatever the determination is made, whether by the city or by the state on this specific rule, we would need to know where to go to seek remedy so we can try to protect any commercial space that we have left from basically suffering the same fate.
Yeah, I mean, I've talked, there's more, I mean, a grocery store, for example, could go in more than just the commercial zoned areas, go in the mixed areas. There's quite a bit of land. I looked for the document. I took some notes somewhere before I came to the meeting. I tried to find my notes. I'll find them, but I just didn't quite get there. So I think, that's one thing I think it's important to remember, that these two pink areas are not the only areas in the Southeast where some of these kind of commercial zones could go. I think that, and this issue is not unique to the Southeast Area Plan. It's the same thing is happening in the Petrosa neighborhood, what was called the perfect rectangle during the UTV expansion. There's almost the exact same project with the same partners is proposed up there. And that one's
We also have a development in the process right now. Temporarily called 45 North, that is right at the corner of 15 and
Murphy.
Murphy. And
That is mixed use.
that they have a commercial zone. And the indications, I believe, that perceived in the public meeting was that, yeah, it's there, but we have no intention of developing it. I'm speaking for myself, you may have had. a
I
different take.
recall that same thing as,
Yeah.
And so what we are raising is not a singular issue, it's potentially the same exact thing can happen there.
right. No, I understand. I mean, I get that, but my point is just that there's two actual things where it's happening right now. Actually, well, the third one I think was in zone commercial. So I think that what I would say is that, as a counselor, it does concern me that we could over time eat up the land that's available for stuff that we know takes a while before the market's ready to provide it, right? If the instructive story, which, may not be perfect, is Northwest Crossing. When I first moved here in 1997, we were just starting to talk about Northwest Crossing, and that person's a really good friend of mine. I'd just retired from the county as a planner, and she worked with Brooks Resources to help develop the master plan for that because it was everything she'd ever thought urban planning should be, right? So she was really excited about it. And so we got to hear about it a little bit more with her personally because we knew her. And, that was 1997. Here we are in 2025. It's almost 30 years later, right? We're just finally seeing a fully built out commercial area there, and they don't have a grocery store. And, but my point is just, it does take a while. We as a city council, when we approve a zone and a master plan that envisions this kind of stuff, we can't force that to happen. Our role is to provide the zoning and the ways that where you could provide that stuff, right? And that you can have mixes of uses and then infrastructure to serve it. But we don't force those developments to happen on any kind of schedule. And what the private sector says is you have to have enough heads nearby that support that kind of service. So I understand why people want it. I think it's a goal we all share. How do we get complete neighborhoods and complete communities? And what concerns me is if we wait the 15 to 20 years, right, before you have enough people in that area before somebody's going to come in and provide that service because they feel like it's viable financially. But there's nowhere to put it because we've eaten it all up. So I think that concern on behalf of the community that these projects are bringing up is a really valid concern. And we have to work through it.
I agree. And
what does that mean? And does it require a legislative fix? Does there need to be something that says, if it's, pre-approved, master plans that are approved, you can only do this on so many, certain percentage of the acres, right? Like we need to think about some option like that. I don't know what the options are because we're just really starting to talk about this, and probably Melanie and Anthony, Senator Broadman have talked about it. The mayor and Senator Broadman talked about it before. But I think it's a really valid concern because if you show up and then there's no there, then you're never going to get the service.
And I think,
we also need the affordable housing, right? So that's the dance and the reason that they did it. I think at the time some of these laws were passed, it may be that the zones are so restrictive that we don't have the ability, there's not a lot of flexibility. So what they were saying was that we need more housing in our communities across the state. And we're gonna force some level of flexibility on local communities because many local communities are not allowing it. They're not doing it on their own. So the legislature was stepping in, and you are seeing this happen more. Salem is wanting to dictate more about how we do stuff, right?
Well, that's, I guess, the question.
To get to that outcome, but I don't think that's been true in Bend. I think we've been trying to do a lot more. So the other thing I think we should be doing is looking broadly at just how do we let our system be a little more flexible?
if not a lot more flexible, and not be so rigid on what can go where and get really stuck on these boundaries so that, let's say in 15 years, there's a portion of residential land that hasn't developed up there. We'll put the grocery store there, for goodness sakes. Like what, it's a little constraining, I think, in a way that doesn't allow the kind of flexibility and adaptability necessary that you might need to really get the outcome, right? If we get too rigid. So I think that's the other thing we're talking about. You're going to hear some of this from Ben Yimby and Central Oregon Land Watch have a proposal, which is great, but it's limited, right? It's not going to produce, it's not designed to ensure we get grocery stores at that scale. It's talking about some smaller tools to make the zoning a little bit more flexible, but I don't think it solves the whole problem. It doesn't even come close to it, in my opinion.
Fair enough. I think our board agrees with you on that last statement.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea, but I don't think it's gonna.
I mean, and I don't think we're here to tell you anything that you don't really know. We're just here we're going through the process of informing the city council, informing the people, because people have basically expressed to us the concerns. I mean, we have mechanisms that require a percentage of open space. We have mechanisms that require the saving of areas of special interest when a developer goes in. We have mechanisms that provide, areas for schools or, things like that. What we're just asking is, we really need to make sure there's a mechanism that provides for the complete community. And if the last thing that goes in is commercial due to market demands, then so be it. Then that means whatever the development is, great. Then you save that. And I've been using Safeway as a prime example. So the average size Safeway, not a big one like on the west side. That's a
Larger than average.
Yeah, I was gonna say like the monolith or the peak of whatever developments grocery stores are. But the average Safeway, when you count their requirements for parking spaces, building a 45,000 square foot building with a half acre of area for literally loading docks and things like that, then they require another half acre or an acre and a half of minimum parking. So you're looking at around 3 acres contiguous just for an average size, something like Safeway. So and they typically, according to their business model, and the same thing with like something like Barnes and Noble or Target, they don't like to be standalone stores. They like to have other businesses because it helps offset their vehicle miles traveled for their customers. So yes, we now have an area that's 4 acres, and that will provide commercial for, a dentist, a chiropractor, a bar or something like that. But as soon as you go below 8 acres, you've literally removed a massive amount of possibilities in our future. And we are trying to just preserve that. So even if there's a mixed use area that's 3 acres, great. The first floor could be businesses and the second, third, fourth floor could be, apartments or condominiums, but you're still just removed a massive portion of, this is America. I mean, the businesses that
It was a uniquely ideal space. I mean, the plan was good. That's a wonderful intersection, high traffic. You're going to have high density housing all around it. You got a high school across the street. What's going to happen along Nod and the rest of town.
One argument would be that this development actually accelerates the time frame by which you would end up using the rest of that space for commercial.
Because it's going to move on. If you use James's model, though, the larger developments are going to require more space than that. So you could have Reed South type development where you have smaller standalone opportunities, and that'd be great. But
no, Reed South is Reed Market Road and 27th Street.
Yes,
that development has smaller units, doesn't have any large retailers, and so it's at some point. I guess the gist of this is one by one the dominoes fall.
Yeah,
to your point. What we see some potential things happening in that space that was not part of the original idea that will absorb could potentially absorb many, many acres. So we're seeing changes. A lot of people who've lived in the old farm for a very long time, you know, they've had, this will never happen, all this will never happen. Well, it's happening. And it's happening right now. And so even if it does take, to your point, well taken, it might take 10, 20 years to get it done. If we don't mind that issue today, it won't happen in 10 or 20 years.
There won't be somewhere to play.
Exactly. And so, you know, where the issue is, this a state issue, is this a city issue, is kind of like where we have to start. We'll start having the conversation.
The other idea, just as a side note, so the site-specific TIF policy that we talked about earlier, the TIAHA, the tiny TIF, that is kind of sort of on pause right now. The council will be revisiting it and think about ways that we could use it differently or improve it. And we also have this home committee that's looking at ways to improve or choose some new incentives for housing, as well as potentially a revenue source to support housing investments, broadly speaking. That committee is going to be looking at it as well. And something that's come up in the discussion, it came up on the Ponderosa development that's over at the corner, you know, where Ponderosa hits Highway 97, kind of between Murphy and China west side. Could we use this tool to the site-specific TIF to provide some incentives specifically for commercial? Like, is there something we could do financially to try to entice somebody to move in sooner rather than later? I guess is the point. Now that's a challenge because it's operating costs, right? But that's essentially what you're doing, is helping underwrite their operating costs. And so maybe, I don't know. I don't think we've dug into it yet to have a sense of would it really make a difference.
But another alternative or another potential tool, and is it reasonable or feasible to require any sort of master plan that includes zoning for space, for that to master plan to be accepted, to include some sort of a partnership with the commercial developer?
From the very beginning, you mean?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it could, I guess, but I suspect the answer is going to be along the lines of, well, you're too early. Like, we don't come in early. We need to know there's land there. And once again, it feels like there's enough people in that area to support it. Then we'll finally make the investment. And as long as there's a place for us to do it, right? It's zoned, it's allowable.
Like Discovery West seemed to be built out in that way, right? That the commercial space was.
But there's
has been
no.
all part of the initial master plan development.
It is, but have you been over there?
Yeah.
Through that, I mean, it's little teeny tiny. I mean, I'm just thinking that one plaza that you're referring to.
Yeah.
It's little teeny tiny, very boutique. It's not a grocery store. I mean, even the grocery store on Brookswood has closed recently, right? It couldn't survive financially. And you know, there's lots of system reasons why that's hard for grocery stores, right? I'm reading an article in something called High Country News all about our food system and the consolidation of grocery stores and how they undercut locals because they can control price better. I mean, there's a lot more than just are there enough people living in the area, but it is real. And that's why nobody came to Northwest Crossing, because they're already a grocery store on 14th Street with Safeway. You've already got Newport Market. And the one that did survive, that's really thrived, Market of Choice, is really kind of in the heart of the city, in a place that's growing. Like, they know there's going to be all kinds of growth there. So
Just opened last weekend.
yeah, well, Jack Straw, Market of Choice has been there for a while.
Yeah,
but Jack Straw.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah.
Right.
That's
And more is going to develop south.
Well, it's just interesting because, and I just want to say this, Oregon came up with this land use issue decades ago, long before anybody like you was in charge or whatever. When you look at other areas of the country that basically don't have any land use rules at all, basically regulation free, I guess would be the flip side of it. Whether it's Texas or Florida or the Carolinas or anything like that, you'll go there and you basically go every 5 miles. It is 5 solid miles of homes. And then you get to a major commercial area and you'll see 3 or 4 large grocery stores in that
I was
area.
just in Texas visiting my son in Dallas.
I'm sure you got a kick out of seeing the planning. But yeah, you'll come up to a commercial area that's like 25 acres or 50 acres, and it's 4 different major grocery stores, a Walmart, you know, a Home Depot, something like that, and then like 25 little things in there. I mean, that is literally, it's the way that the market has told us. That's what the market wants, organize these different land use laws. But those people now are trying to figure out how to make complete communities after the fact. And they have no chance. And the one thing that Bend is different than the rest of the state is we're literally working with the blank canvas. And the state legislature was trying to figure out how to get certain areas of Portland to revitalize and take commercial and make some of that affordable housing. And this is where we really think that the city leaders, such as yourself, really need to go approach the state legislature and say, look, we've had a master plan and follows the complete or the climate friendly equitable community standards. It follows the density notifications, but now you just created a way that you're destroying the whole complete communities with an exception.
Well, Senator Broadman might have been referring broadly to the idea that I mentioned earlier, which is to loosen things up with the current zoning and allow more things so that you can get more stuff happening. You're not so bound. Only do this here. You know, we've done some of that, right? I mean, it's happened. The legislature has forced us to in terms of, you know, the stuff that's allowed in the standard residential zone, the more diversity of housing types, right? But the same concept of how do we do that and make sure that, because you have a lot of land down here, right? That's still hasn't.
It's all getting,
It is, I know.
Yeah.
Right. So the combination of more flexibility, but also saying this is a master planned area, there's got to be some acreage that somehow is protected. I don't know how that works legally, like how we go about doing that.
Well, he was very specific. He was not about, it was not about, he said it was not about flexibility. He said there is no legislative fix for this in the short session. He had no interest in taking it up in the future, and that he thought the city had the tools in the toolbox to say no. And Karen is saying the word is shall.
Yeah, it's shall in multiple places.
And so we're trying to figure out what does shall mean. Does it mean what we think it means? And does the city agree with that? Because then we can take exception at the state. Because right now, the land is going away. None of the other goals are being met. And how do you create effective change if everybody's looking at each other going, it's your fault, sure. So
yeah, I mean, like I said, I'd have to understand the legal stuff a little bit better, and I just ask him directly. But, I mean, he was city councilor for 4 years. He should have some specifics.
He was gonna have some of his staff, I think, look into some of those.
So we're following up with him. It'll be interesting to see how that follows.
Yeah, when you get a response, TC.
And
I'll let you join the meeting if you want.
the spirit and intent of the law, sorry, Jen,
No,
the spirit and intent of the law, as I have said, it was to make sure that zoning was not an impediment to putting in affordable housing. I think that's a good
Right.
reason to put it in place. Absolutely. It's just a question of how effectively and efficiently they're doing.
But it shouldn't remove the other parts of complete community.
Correct.
That's your point, right? Well, that's fine, but if it results in us, you know. So that's what I'm kind of getting at. Like, is there some kind of limit? Do we say, well, you can only do that in X% of the land that has been zoned, and then you know, no more than sizes of this big, or you have to retain, you know, properties that
If it can include that.
number of acre. I don't know. I mean,
well, if you just went from
maybe
shall
walk
to
through
may,
something.
just that one word changed everything. Because if you made it may,
That's gonna be.
Maybe.
but then the state can hold municipalities, you know, if the state's goals are achieve X, then they say go achieve
I
X.
guess the fight to get shall in there a while back in the legislature was hard.
Well, you showed no interest.
Right, they're not gonna open that door.
Right, yeah.
So since this is just a monthly board meeting and we all have many things to do, we are going to be wrapping up this meeting. Jim or James, if you have anything to add, this is the time to do it. Otherwise, I'm going to leave the last 2 or 3 minutes for Mike to give us a fond farewell after I make one announcement. James, do you have anything?
Well,
to add?
I just want to thank everyone for the work that you're doing. I appreciate that, your volunteers and, you know, your sharing all your spare time to get these things done. So I appreciate your efforts in getting this resolved.
Thank you.
James?
You're welcome.
So on that note, just one announcement that we were asked to share. Please excuse my terrible Spanish, but Dia de los Muertos, 2025, Day of the Dead, I believe, is on November 7th downtown, 4 to 10. Just a good social event for the community. And then, like I said, I'm going to give you the last little bit, Mike, if you've got anything you want to chime in on, and the board will be quiet, and then we're going to wrap it up.
Well, I think two things. One, I mean, I think you all know that the Ferguson and 15th roundabout is in design process right now. I mean, it's something that's come up several of these meetings. You know, it was a while ago, but like, when is this happening? Why is it taking so long? That kind of thing. So it has, I think it's been accelerated a bit. It's in design. I tried to see if I could get an answer today on what, I don't remember the actual timeline for construction. I would guess it's 9 to 12 months from now before construction starts.
2027, I thought.
Is it that far out?
The original schedule, and I thought you guys were trying to move it up.
Yeah, I thought that one was moving up. A little. So, but it is in the design process now. I'm assuming there will be some kind of open housey kind of thing at some point. I mean, it's pretty straightforward roundabout. It's not super.
There's no
complicated.
such thing.
And it's got 3 parts, right, instead of 4.
Well, technically it's 4.
It's got 4.
The,
Yeah.
so,
Private road.
the neighborhood to the west, it's a true 4-lane roundabout.
Yeah, Ferguson's angled.
So, so that's it happening. And then the other thing is that, as we talked about at the last city council meeting, there's been interest in having essentially a roundtable, this roundtable format we have, that we've experimented on a couple different things, and to focus on growth in the Southeast and growth in infrastructure. And really, you know, I don't know to what extent fire might want to be part of that. We kind of already had a pretty big discussion with your joint annual meetings on that topic. But my understanding is that Renee is trying to set up a time for you guys to talk later this week or very soon.
We have a meeting on.
Apparently, I was informed, but didn't get the final. So he corrected me on the way here after you had asked me. So it sounds like we are meeting this week on that.
Yeah, which is great. And so I think, you know, that's partly because, you know, you guys are making noise. 1, 2, I've been making some noise too, like,
Yeah,
hey.
we're a band. This has got a rhythm and a beat, and you can dance to it.
You know, I think, and the mayor lives down here too, and I think that people understand, like, this part of town is, I think, probably experiencing the most development pressure and growth pressure anywhere in the city right now, and a lot of change. And so, so I think we want to do that if you guys are interested in it. And my hope is that it'll happen. It's probably not going to happen this year, frankly. We're getting close to Thanksgiving, and maybe, but I don't know that that nobody started talking about dates yet, but in the first quarter next year for sure.
Cool.
And that's my hope. I can't promise that, right? Because there's going to be a lot to think about, but
We briefly chatted about the timeline and just the reality of
holidays and all that stuff. And frankly, there's a lot on the council's agenda for the next couple of months already, so it might be hard to shoehorn this in that quickly.
anything else.
That's basically it.
If that is the case, Ross, James, thank you for attending. We're going to call this meeting to an end.